My name's Tim, and I'm a believer in Jesus Christ and in recovery for drugs and alcohol. It is by the grace. I'm going to do my testimony if you didn't know. So this is a testimony. Testify. It is only by the grace of God through Jesus Christ that I am alive and sober to share my experience, strength, and hope with you. I remember feeling restless, irritable, discontent, lying, cheating, and stealing. At the age of 7, I was sexually abused by a teacher, and I was physically abused by my parents. Proof positive that drinking was only a symptom. I now had a great excuse to get drunk. At the age of 11, I had my first drunk. And I did big shots. I was a big shot and I did big shots. Passed out and woke up on the bathroom floor. At 13, I went to a party in the woods. This was unbelievable. So I went to this party and with a bunch of my buddies up in this area. I kind of grew up like, it was kind of in between the suburb and an inner city area in New Jersey. And there's this, the woods were up on this mountain where George Washington had a skirmish, so they never built anything on it. So we used to go up there and make believe we were Hicks. Do we got feedback? Unbelievable. So I go up there, and my friends weren't there yet. And so there's this other group of guys hanging out. So I went over there, and we were hanging out, and they said, hey, you want to smoke some opium? I said, sure. So I smoked some opium. And I drank a bunch of Southern Comfort and beer, and I passed out in the mud puddle. And then my buddies came up there. My friends finally made it up there, and they peed on me. You're supposed to laugh. We'll get to the future of that one. But, yeah, so I could let you know I had really good friends. And I was dragged to a fire by John Helma, really neat guy, and he kind of saved my life. At 14, I did a bunch of drinking. I drank a bunch of, a ton of it, a ton of vodka, and I ended up passing out, and I blacked out, and I woke up in a hospital with alcohol poisoning. And there's a candy striper in there, and she was from my, everybody know what a candy striper is? They're like volunteer. Well, this girl was from my band class. I was like, hey, how'd I get here? Had an IV in my arm, a brown paper bag with my name on it, letting me know my parents knew. At 16 years old, I weighed 230 pounds. I was in good shape from football and wrestling. And I started going to New York City. I lived right by New York City. I started getting coke and all that kinds of stuff. Over the next 3 years, I was thrown out of school, got my GED. I got kicked out of my parents' house, moved into wretched conditions in the inner city. By the time I was 19, I was 6'2", and I was 136 pounds. I remember going home, so I was living in really bad conditions. I was sleeping on a pile of sheetrock. I had it going on. So, I don't know how, because I never told anybody where I was going. Somehow one of my brothers found me. And I was sitting, everybody know what the old basement doors are, those big metal doors that you unfold? It goes down into the basement. And I was sitting in there. That's where my pile of sheetrock was, down in there. And he said, you want to go home? I was like, yep, let's go. So, and I went home. And my father saw me. I thought he saw a ghost. He started pulling out the Wonder Bread and the bologna and the sandwiches and making me eat. Come on, eat. So my brother Paulie went and got the scale and bought it out to weigh me. And he weighed me. I was 136 pounds. So soon after that, I moved 3,250 miles to California. I came out here to smoke good green bud and drink beer. At Margaritaville, everybody know where Margaritaville is? If you're local, you know where that is. In Capitola, I met my future ex-wife, Colleen. Little did I know God was working in my life. She was a beautiful young lady who loved God. I moved to Tracy. Everybody know where Tracy is? I'm sorry. And got married. Her dad was a deacon in the Catholic Church, and I got myself reconnected with the Catholic Church. I was brought up Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I was actually an altar boy. Imagine that. Huh, Mark? Imagine that. I vividly remember in Catholic school having a conscious contact with God until about fourth grade. I remember there was a priest there, Father Pat, was sharing with me about the love of God. I was in third grade, and asking me to accept God's love and God's grace in my life. But soon after that, I kind of walked away from it. My relationship with Colleen, though, rekindled it. Jesus was knocking. I had my hand on the doorknob, but refused to open the door. Drinking and drugs were more important. I went roaring through Colleen's life and her family's life like a tornado. At this point in my life, my using had changed for the worse. I could not drink. I had become a real alcoholic. The choice to quit or even moderate was gone. I was hopeless and helpless. I was in and out of jails and treatment facilities. Anybody know what a treatment facility really is? Anybody from New Life? Teen Challenge? I know there's a bunch of you here. That's a nice word for a loony bin. I remember being at New Life Center, and my sponsor, I was really mad because this guy was smoking pot. I really looked up to him. So I got a cigarette from him, and it smelled like a roach. You know, I was like, what do I do? You know, so I called my sponsor. I said, well, what do I do? This guy's in here smoking pot. We're all trying to stay sober. And he goes, did you make your bed? Did you brush your teeth? Did you get ready for work? I'm like, no. He goes, well, go do that. And while you're in there making your bed, tell me what your mattress is made of. Call me back. So I did all that, and I called him back, and he goes, okay, so what's your mattress made of? I said, it's made of rubber. I don't know if they're still made of rubber in New Life. About a rubber mattress about yay thick. He goes, do you know why they make it out of rubber? In case you soil the bed. They could wash it off, and they could reuse it. He goes, now go in the on-site manager's office and look at the plaque above her head. So I went in the office, and the lady was in there. There's this little plaque. It's a licensed mental facility. And it was a real eye-opener for me. I wasn't just like in a rehab again, like I'm getting rehabilitated from a knee injury, you know? I was in a loony bin, basically. So it was really like peeling the onion for me. I made feeble attempts at recovery, never really giving it an honest shot, and not feeling I deserved it either. I gave the steps only a passing attempt. I never really giving my sponsor or other program the attention or effort necessary to acquire anything like recovery. I had only 17 names on my original 4-step. And if I haven't mentioned it already, I'm the last of 11 kids. So I have 10 brothers and sisters and a mom and dad. So there's 13 right there. So it's pretty feeble. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, they hold on to some of the worst items in stock. Invariably, they got drunk. Guess what? I got drunk. The result was I got myself thrown completely out of the town of Tracy. I wonder if anybody's ever done that. No wife, no job, no friends, and as if I could care no God. I took my matching luggage, my 3 hefty bags, my raging addiction to anything that would change my feeling. I ran back to Santa Cruz. I did the clean and sober house shuffle. Getting loaded the whole time. I was not going to be honest with anyone. I could do it on my own. I was coming to the end. Everyone could see it except me. I went on a 3-day run with my straw, my crack pipe, and all the beer and liquor I could drink. I showed back up at the clean and sober house I was living in with no shoes, no coat, no wallet on a rainy day. On November morning, It was a November morning. I was dirty and I was 160 pounds. I was beaten up to the point of submission. I was ready for a better way. On November 27th, 1994, was my last drink, pill, or fix. I humbly asked God to help me and made a commitment to the 12 steps. I moved into New Life Center. I was desperate. I went to a speaker meeting where I heard a man said, "Work the steps or die." Actually, what happened is I went up to him after the meeting. And this dude looked like a refrigerator with arms. And what I came to find out later, he's a Navy SEAL in Vietnam. He had a crew cut, he had tattoos all over him, and I was afraid of him. But I heard him speak at the Monday night H&I meeting, the AA meeting. He came in. I said, I got to get that guy for a sponsor. And I kind of did a buzzard around, I circled around him until I got enough courage to go ask him. And I said, will you work the steps with me? And he came about this far away from my nose. He came right up in front. He goes, work the steps or die. And I was like, oh, no. What did I do? I'm within arm's reach now. I humbly asked him to become my sponsor. He said, call me every day. So I did. Guess what? I stayed sober. Soon we met, and he told me, I give directions, not suggestions. Do what you're told or go get another sponsor and don't do what he says. Or better yet, go get loaded. I got exactly what I needed when I needed it. I'm not saying that would work for everybody, but that's what worked for me. So I didn't have to question it. Because in my dictionary, the word suggestion means I don't have to do it. It has my picture next to it. So if you just tell me what to do, I can do it. I got exactly what I needed when I needed it. The knob was turned, the door was open, and God's grace was evident in my life. I stayed sober. With God and my sponsor, I could do this. A couple weeks later, I got a phone call. I went back. I was working at a cabinet shop, finishing cabinets. And I got a little slip. There's a phone. Well, back then, we didn't have cell phones. So there's a payphone at New Life Center. I got a slip saying there's a message to call my brother. So I called my brother back east, and he told me my dad died. Guess what? I called my sponsor. It's the first thing I did because I was used to calling my sponsor every day. I reached out. What a concept. With my father dead, and the only place safe for me to go was God and to my sponsor. After prayer and good orderly direction from my sponsor, I had a course of action that would enable me to show up at my mom's house 3,250 miles away, sober. And my sponsor gave me a few suggestions. They were very helpful. Anybody got, well, I'll use this. To get on the plane, first thing I need to do is I'll make believe this is a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. To bring my book onto the plane and read the first 3 chapters. When I'm done with that, you read them again. When you're done with that, you read them again. When you're done with that, you read them again. When you're done with that, you read them again. You keep reading them, the first 3 chapters until you get back here. You tell the stewardess you're an alcoholic. You give up your anonymity when it's going to save your butt. So that's what I did. I got on the plane. I told the stewardess I was an alcoholic. And, just go by me with the alcohol tray. So I sat, I had a window seat. I'm sitting down. I had my big book with me. I said, okay, I'm going to follow my sponsor's instructions. I opened up the book, the first page. I was reading it. This is how God works in my life. Some guy gets in the seat next to me, and he orders a scotch. He opens up the lid, and I could smell it, man. I could smell that stuff. I'm like, oh. And I'm reading the book. I'm like, see that? See that? I had the Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't talk to me. I could see. It just what I need. There was no conversation. I just kept staring at my big book. I couldn't really read. I was too nervous for 6 hours until I got back home. And It was such a, and when I get home, don't try to make amends with anybody. I'm not ready for that. Be of service. Help your mom around the house, vacuum, clean, do dishes, go to the grocery store. And I can remember, I was doing this stuff, and I can remember they would, every once in a while they'd be looking at me like, yeah, there's something different here. Because, first of all, I probably would have never made it back there, and if I did, I would have been getting whacked. So, and at the funeral, my dad's burial, it's a big Catholic thing, and they had the flag. My dad was a World War II Marine. They had the flag over the casket, and they were lowering it down into the grave. And the priest was over him, and he was doing, as we walked through the valley of shadow of death, and he's blasting it all. My mom turned around, a noise came out of her mouth I've never heard before. She was just out of control. And she turned around, and out of all of us, she came and she hugged me. I got to get her over into the limo and get her out of there. And that was a gift. I didn't see it at the time, but that was a gift. I look back now and I'm like, all I had to do was follow directions. Because that's not the way I would have done it with Tim's directions. I wouldn't have done it like that. So I went to a bunch of meetings. I called my sponsor every day too. I didn't take the first drink. After returning to New Life Center with 90 days sober, I started with the big book called A Vigorous Course of Action. I picked up the pencil and the big book. I took steps 1, 2, and 3 with all my heart. There was a God, and I could feel him. He was carrying me through all of it. Now it was time for the fearless moral inventory. Anybody know about that one? I did it at my sponsor's house at the kitchen table. What a relief. I could leave my 4-step there and not have to take it or the little mind weasels with me. I felt safe. When I started when I did my resentment list this time, I had 102 names on my resentment list, not 17 like the first time. I'm certain that prayer was making all the difference, and that was. My sponsor had me pray every time before I started writing. Ask God to guide my pen. And like my list, I had of course, mom and dad, God, myself, the people that molested me, brothers and sisters. But when it started getting down there, I was like, I'm not sure if I have resentment against that guy. I don't remember his name. My sponsor said, well, what was he wearing? I said, a plaid flannel shirt. He goes, right, the guy with the plaid flannel shirt down. PG&E, AT&T, the cops. It was a thorough list, a very thorough list. So yeah, several things appeared on my resentment list. My dad, Colleen, my friends, and my alcoholism. My patterns of twisted relations became apparent. I was surprised to see how much resentment I had towards my father. I never really knew this. When I went to his services in New Jersey, I discovered so much about him. And I'll save this part of it. Basically, he was a World War II veteran. He's a Marine in World War II. And newspaper clippings and all that kind of stuff. He had 11 kids, and he held 3 jobs to keep us in food and keep a roof over our head. My dad always made time for homework, church, recreation, for me and all my brothers and sisters. He was a good man who had his faults, just as well we all do. And so and I wasn't the best kid. I was lying, cheating, and stealing. I'd steal $20 out of my dad's wallet. We didn't have any money. You know what I mean? It's not like he didn't know. So this is a time that really stood out to me that I had a resentment about. This is what the atmosphere I grew up in. Both my mom and dad grew up during the Depression. They were cut from a different cloth. My dad was a Marine. So I was supposed to do my schoolwork at the dining room table. I'm sitting there with my social studies book. And I got a pair of glasses because I couldn't see. I had a new pair of glasses. So I'm sitting there with my new pair of glasses reading my social studies book. My dad gets up out of the couch and he comes across from me. You got to figure it's kind of like a picnic table with a couple of picnic benches on each side. And he kneels across from me and he goes, "Read." So I'm like, my dad was mean looking too, man. He was really mean looking. And he said, "Read." And he puts his forearm right next to the book and he goes, "Read." And I couldn't read. I was too scared. So my dad hauls back. He thinks I'm messing around. He hauls back and wham, he slams me in the face. Glasses break. I got a bloody nose. My mom comes running in with like a washcloth from the sink, from the kitchen sink, puts it around my face, and she's yanking me out of the picnic bench. And she goes, "You're making a mess." And I'm like, all right. So she's dragging me into the kitchen. My dad's whapping me in the back of the head. My mom's like, "Hun, stop. You're making a mess." So that's kind of the atmosphere I grew up in. It wasn't like that all the time. Like it says here, he helped out a lot. My dad taught me how to play guitar. There's a lot of good things. But when I got into recovery and I started looking at my resentments, man, I really started looking at the bad parts. I was really hyper-focused on that. And there's a lot of moments like that, very high tension. So basically, as I grew up and as I got older and got to be an adult, my reaction was I walked around on eggshells. I was ready to go at any time. I was a loose cannon. So what was really neat, and what I got to take inventory on, is 2 weeks before he passed, I was at New Life. This is before I got the phone call. And I hadn't really talked to my dad in like 2 years. My dad wouldn't talk to me. And I called. My dad answered the phone and I explained to him how I had not been humbling myself and asking for help. I told him about my commitment to God, the program, and to get sober and stay sober. He agreed that I should get help, and he said the farmer needs the truck driver to deliver the food. The truck driver needs a cook to cook it, and the cook needs us to eat it. Anybody that says they're independent, they're full of donkey dust. That's why I didn't cuss, if you didn't know. And then my dad said I won't be around much longer. I said, "I love you, Dad." He said, "Me too." That was the first time I ever heard him say anything like that. Jesus said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that anyone who believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life." God did not send his Son to condemn it, but to save it. John 3:16-17. After I finished my 4th step and started on my 5th step, the fog of self-deception, self-pity, self-centered fear was starting to lift. The big book says, we've begun to see how the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongs of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. Realize that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. How could I be helpful to them? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. We spent 8 hours on my 5th step, finding the exact nature of my wrongs. With a plan of action, I began my 6th step, became willing to have God remove my character defects, and 7, humbly on my knees, asking him to remove them. Now, having step 8 in front of me, I made a list. God speaks loudly to me through circumstances. I was living at a clean and sober house. It had been about 3 years since I had spoken to my ex-wife. I got a letter from God. "Hello, Tim. It's time to go make amends with Colleen." And I got a letter from the Catholic Church that Colleen was seeking an annulment. I had not spoken to Colleen or to church in over 3 years and had moved many times. How this letter found me, I still don't know. And I met with my ex-wife. We cried, we laughed, we prayed together. And in the Bible, God puts it this way: "But dearly beloved friends, if our conscience is clear, We can come to the Lord with perfect assurance and trust and get whatever we ask for because we are obeying him and doing the things that please him. That's John 3:21, 22. I've done some more work on steps 8 and 9 throughout the years. I'm just going to tell a really quick one. What time we got? Okay, I got it. This time for a question. So my dad, I made amends with him. I wrote him a letter because he had passed by this point. And so this would have been like 95. And we burned the letter. And that was good. It really helped out a lot. And so in 2005, I met a guy in this Celebrate Recovery. His name was Dixie. He was 92 years old. He came to our small group. And he was a World War II Marine, and he was in Okinawa at 17 years old. He's in our little small group. We're like, what's he doing here? You know? And so after the meeting was over, we were having coffee like we do here, having Solid Rock. I said, hey, Dixie, my dad was in Iwo Jima. That's all I ever knew about my dad. So he said, come on over to the house. We'll fill out some paperwork, send it into the Navy, because my dad was in the Marines, and I could get his records and some next of kin. So I did that, wrote this, filled out this paperwork, sent it in about a month later. I got back a big packet. He was a private first class, Joseph William Miller. And he had a Bronze Star, 2 presidential unit citations, a naval unit citation, a letter from a general, a letter from a colonel. There was a book in there with his picture in it. And there was pictures. They sent like 7 pictures back because you weren't allowed to have a camera back then when you were overseas. I'm like, wow. So I'm looking in this book, and there's a picture of him in Guam on a ship-to-shore radio. My friend Dixie said it was a radio that you'd call in coordinates for the bombs. And he said, your dad must have been smart. Because back then we didn't have computers. You had a slide ruler. You had to know calculus. And you can't be wrong. Otherwise, you're bombing your own guys. So then we started meeting at Dixie's house with a bunch of other of his World War II Marine buddies and having presentations. They would sit in a circle, and they would always tell their story, one guy. And then the Vietnam vets started coming, telling their stories. And here I am. You know, I never served. They made me a corporal because I made good coffee. I bought good desserts. It was awesome. And I got to hear Vietnam vet stories that never told their stories to anybody. They came back home and hung their uniforms. One day I'm giving this guy a ride home, Cal. He was a World War II Marine, and he was a interpreter for Japanese prisoners. And I'm driving him home after the meeting. They're in their 90s. They can't drive anymore. And I had just gotten my dad's packet back, and I was showing it to them. I'm dropping him off at his house. And if some of you may know, Marines have a different way of communicating. They're very direct. And there's just something about him. He had his Marine-issued glasses on, his Marine hat, and his khakis. I'm dropping him off, and he's getting ready to leave, and he turns over to me and goes, hey, Tim. Hey, Cal. And he goes, yeah, your dad was a hero. I said, no, you too, Cal. And he goes, no, your dad was in the fight. I said, okay, Cal, thank you. And he goes, your dad be proud of you. He gets out of my truck and walks in. And I drive away. I'm like, wow, I never thought of that, you know? And that night I went home and went to sleep and had a dream. Had a dream I was in the house I grew up in. I grew up in a really old house. And me and 2 of my brothers slept in the attic. And I was in this dream, I was standing on top of the steps looking down. And this little kid came walking through the door and came up the steps. And also, it was me. And then I turned into me as a little kid. And all of a sudden I got that fear. I was walking on eggshells. It came, I'm looking, it was so real. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if I've ever dreamt in color. I can remember the colors. I can remember if you're ever in an attic, you can see little dust particles floating around. I could see all that. And I was looking across when I got to the top of the steps. We used to have a factory fan that bolted into the window and blew out, and my dad was standing in front of it. I was walking across. I was so scared. I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble for something. I got really close. I looked up at him. His face was right there. He looked down at me, and all of a sudden his face lightened up, and he smiled, and he said, good job. Good job. And I woke up. And I was like, whew. Remember, Jen? I was in tears. I was like, man, it was so real. Who knows? I don't know. But it seemed real to me. And it took time. That was a full amends. At that point, the full amends was realized. And so, if anything I can impart to you, to anyone in here, to take your time. I know we all have different stories. We all got different stories. We all have different places we've come from. It takes time. Be patient. Stay sober. Stay the course. We can do this. We really can. Everybody in this room. It always I don't want to say upsets me. It does. Yeah, it kind of upsets me. How many chairs would be filled with people right now that have been coming here, that were coming here, and they're dead now? They died of this disease. Or they just leave and they go back out there. This is such a great place. This is the best meeting in town. I'm telling you. This is a great meeting. It's a 12-step recovery meeting where our higher power's name's not anonymous. It's Jesus. So I just want to thank you all. God bless you all. Thank you for 12-stepping me.
Santa Cruz Celebrate Recovery meets every Friday night at 7 p.m. We're located at Christian Life Center, 1009 Mission Street in Santa Cruz, California. If you live near Santa Cruz or just visiting the area, we warmly invite you to attend. To learn more, you can visit our page on Christian Life Center's website at clcsantacruz.org/celebrate-recovery. We hope this video has been encouraging to you, and thank you for watching.